Let's get some reaction now. Political analyst Ongama Mtimka joins us now to expand on this conversation. A very good evening to you. The final tally has been unveiled. And of course, we know that at this point, no party has secured an outright majority. What is at stake? What does it mean going forward as we try and see who what sort of composition it'll take to govern the country?
Good evening to you, Mpo, and the viewers at home. It's been a breathtaking moment, especially the last 24 hours. We know that there were some issues that needed to be resolved in order to get us to a stage where results can be announced and most likely accepted by a wide range of people. I'm happy that we've gone through that. What is left now is for political parties to try and find one another in order to constitute a government. As you know, if the ANC tried to field its own candidate without having negotiated with others, all the other political parties would likely do the same, and the chances that there wouldn't be there would be somebody who succeeds and gets the majority of the votes if it's a minority government. But if all parties had agreed, like opposition parties agree, there would be a risk that another person could, be the president. So I think that there's going to be a lot of horse trading among political parties. We heard earlier today with the Democratic Alliance saying that they are open to talking to the various political parties in order to constitute a government. The ANC has done the same. The Economic Freedom Fighters have done the same. So we are actually on that 14-day period in which we expect a lot to be happening. Many of the political parties said by Tuesday they will be presenting a report back to some of their senior leadership. And so I expect that by Wednesday we would be getting a sense of which direction the coalition governments that are going to be constituted are going.
What sort of considerations do you think would need to come with the sort of direction that the ANC, for one, will be taking at this point in time as it considers who to pair up with?
So on the opinion is divided here. On the one level, you have people who say that the ANC, the EFF and MK party have a unique position where they could bring about radical changes. However, the anxiety that would be there among, especially in the investor and business community in South Africa, is fear over control of the macroeconomic environment, especially the key institutions, be they the Reserve Bank and then maybe irresponsible fiscal policy. Then you also have on the other extreme the people, and it's mainly a business community that is hoping for an ANC-DA coalition, which is perceived to bring about a lot more stability as far as the macroeconomic outlook is concerned and the continuity of policy. But the anxiety about the ANC going that direction is that the DA has made it clear what are some of the government policies that it is against, and those threaten a significant section of society, the same way that the MK party, EFF and ANC coalition would do. When I did my own assessment, I was of the view that maybe what we're going to come up with might be a government of national unity type arrangement, in terms of which there would be a deal to draw members of cabinet from a significant number of political parties. And so far, I would expect that probably there would be DA, ANC, and some from the smaller parties and even EFF, so as to manage being seen to be swayed in either direction. Also, there could be, other parties that express interest in joining that coalition, but it seems that the ANC-DA coalition was gaining steam today. I don't know whether that's going to be sustained in the next few days.
What we did here this evening, Ongama, just my colleague Natasha Piri speaking to the Freedom Front Plus's Dr. Groenewald, he was saying that he will do everything in his power to prevent the MK and the EFF forming a coalition. What sort of threat would the pair pose if they did come together?
So, look, two things. I think that what people fear the most are impressions based on what these parties have said. Now, I think that if one listens to the rhetoric of Julius Malema, to me it's clear that some of that rhetoric is going to fade away as pragmatism, becomes the main issue. But the elements within Umkhonto Wesizwe Party have expressed intention to radically change the constitution. I remember some of the allies have been people who are pro a parliamentary supremacy, not a constitutional democracy, among other things. So those are the things that actually make people anxious. But also there's concerns about how much bargaining would politicians have to do with institutions of law enforcement, among others. Because remember, it's this same coalition that passed the motion to dissolve the Scorpions in 2007 while they were all together in the ANC. And their rhetoric has not suggested that some within that group would want to bring back the Scorpions. Like, for example, a Scorpions-like institution has been signed into law recently. So the fears really are that if there's too much of a coalition with the radical groupings, it might just threaten the core of the constitutionalism that we have because of what these parties have said in public. So it's not unfounded fears, it's fears that are based on things that they have said. But I have argued previously, especially when speaking to investor communities, that it's one thing for political parties to mobilize around particular policy platforms. It's another to be in government and have to contend with the practicalities of governing and the multi-stakeholder approach nature of making policy at government level. And the fact that as a constitutional democracy, people cannot make laws that are unconstitutional and not have those challenged in the courts.
What about the impact of a coalition government at national level? I mean, there's been some talk about how that could perhaps see a paralysis of policies and laws, or even result in a much weaker government. What is your thoughts around that?
My sense is that we shouldn't underestimate the experience that the ANC has gained since, one could argue, 1996 in policy intermediation. They've been able to, for example, make sure that in 2012 they make a resolution to revise the Minerals and Petroleum Resources Development Act rather than to nationalize the mines as per the agitations of the then Youth League of the ANC. Also, there's been other instances where the ANC, mindful of the public gaze, pulls back from a process of bringing about policy that may not survive constitutional tests. I have here things like the Media Appeals Tribunal and the Protection of State Information Bill. So these politicians have got experience negotiating the tensions that come with making policy choices in ways that continue to make those policies acceptable to a wider range of stakeholders, because they know that policies here have got to pass a constitutional test. So there would be some jitters, especially in the markets. My view is that's why I analyzed and ended up with the idea that maybe what we're going to come up with is a government of national unity, which is a broad church coalition, which doesn't have too much of a radical leftist flavor or too much of a center-right flavor, but more centrist.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion. Political analyst Ongama Mtimka joining us there live from the National Results Operational Centre out in Midrand, Johannesburg.